Hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo,
Hey guys.
everyone. Hey, yo, hey, yo, everyone. Do you hear us? Do you see us?
Yeah. Guys, if you can hear us, you can see us, just say, I guess, where you're from. I typically love to ask that question. We typically have folks all around the world, in the US, Europe, Miami.
Oh, Miami, Portugal, France, Mars. Oh my God. California, Italy, Lithuania,
Yeah.
Medellin, Lithuania,
Oh, it's popular today.
Canada, Denver, Colombia. Frank, I really enjoyed that moment whenever we ask people, where are you based right now? And people say all around the world. And I just feel, oh my God, so much pressure. So many people are taking a look at us from just different parts of the world.
I'm just looking
Frank,
also at the trend, right? Because you try and naturally adjust the let's go the content, whatever, towards particular territory. So it's good to see where people are from, right? So we can fine tune what we want to show you guys as well, right? So
yeah, awesome. By the way, I know that some people will watch this webinar as a recording because now they're in Australia. So hey, Australia. I know a lot of people actually ask me, hey, I gotta send the recording just because it's gonna be 3 a.m. my time. So I said, yeah, definitely. um, yeah, okay. By the way, Frank, where are you based right now?
So I'm actually based in Lithuania right now. It depends on where you catch me. Lithuania. Prior to that, I used to be based in London. Flying to Berlin next week to a conference called Artist. Maybe some people know. A bunch of salespeople,
Are
1,000 salespeople there. They call it the Tomorrowland of sales, literally. So it's a really cool place to go. Then yeah, I'll be a bunch of different places. Estonia. Going to Austin, Texas for SaaS Talk. Croatia, for another SaaS event, Singapore, to that part of the world, yeah, sales is being done all across the world. People send emails, everywhere. It doesn't matter where you're based, Japan, Hong Kong, US, etc. Everybody's sending a bunch of emails, and it's getting tougher across, for everybody. And so, yeah, we talk to people all around the world. So this is also why I'm also curious where people are coming from. So, uh,
Yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. One more thing, guys, whenever you have any questions, please use the Q&A section. You can ask questions in the chat, but I know that a lot of people are talking in the chat, etc., etc. So we might lose and miss some questions that you have. So please just use the Q&A section, and during the webinar, we're going to interrupt each other and ask the questions that you shared, or after, like once we finish with the main part, we can also answer all of your questions. And I know that there are going to be a lot of questions because there are so many little nuances and details, different cases, etc., etc. So feel free, okay? One more thing before we start, I wanted to I usually try to make it not only the educational webinar, but also the place where we can network. So feel free to share your LinkedIn profile and say who you are in the chat. And during the webinar, please feel free to connect with each other. Probably you can find potential partners, potential co-founders of your business, potential clients, potential providers of the services, etc., etc. So feel free to say, hey, I am Ilya, and I am doing the SaaS growth or outbound lead generation. So please connect with me if you're interested, and leave your and add your LinkedIn profile. So by the way, here's the LinkedIn profile of Frank. So I've prepared that. So Frank, connect with Frank, our today's speaker. So, and of course, you can connect with me as well. I hope that you know me. If you don't, that's definitely fine. So feel free to connect with me. So Ilya, boom. Okay, Frank, are you ready to start?
yeah, let's go.
Let's go, guys. So let me share my screen, and please tell me whether you can see my deck or not. Pop, pop, pop. Just give me a second. Yes, yeah. Should be working well, right? This. Okay, guys, please tell me in the chat right now whether you can see my screen. It should be the deck. Just say me yes or no. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Clara. Okay, so let's go. Today we're gonna talk about building the anti-fragile coding infrastructure. Today we're gonna talk about how to send enough cold emails to generate leads out of outbound, but at the same time, make sure that your emails are not going to spam. And how to build the real anti-fragile cold email structure. Why I call it as anti-fragile, because in reality, when it comes to the cold emailing or outbound lead generation, deliverability is the most fragile thing, right? So we always are not quite sure whether our emails are going to the inbox or landing into spam. We are not quite sure what to do, what to fix, etc., etc. There are so many details and nuances. That is why it is extremely fragile. And today we're going to cover how to build the anti-fragile cold email infrastructure. And today I'm not alone. And today we do have Frank with us. Hey, Frank.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit
And
about me, maybe, just gonna introduce. So, for those of you who don't know, so I've been in sales for like over a decade and been in frontline sales. Then I led a sales team of about 50 people about a couple of years ago. And then I started this company called, well, it's called Salesforce, which was the first product. Then we built a bunch of other products like InfoForge, MailForge, even Kick-Ass, AI, SDR, and stuff like that. So a lot of products, and they're all designed to help essentially build sales pipeline. And just to give you an understanding of what sort of velocity we operate, we send tens of millions of emails on a daily basis. Hence, there's a lot of insights that will be in here naturally shared by Ilya and myself that will try and help you kind of optimize, naturally your deliverability, right? So, and yeah, that's a bit about me. Don't want to talk too much about myself. I think we're all here to learn and kind of dive into the data and the insights and a bunch of other things.
yeah, one more thing, I guess Frank is the perfect person to talk about the overall outbound, but at the same time about deliverability about deliverability topic. Why? Because Frank has been doing sales for quite a long time, but at the same time, Frank is building an ecosystem of the products that cover sending, cover infrastructure, covering warm up, covering even the AI SDR and AI automation thing in this space. So Frank is not only the person from the, hey, I know how to write cold emails, but Frank is actually building the ecosystem of the products that is quite popular right now. So thanks a lot, Frank, for coming today.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay. And for those who don't know who I am, who is this bird guy, my name is Ilya. I was working at Lemlist, was working at the Grows, at Expondi, and now I'm building my own company called Growth Band. We are basically doing several things. We help B2B brands build and level up their in-house outbound lead generation by building systems, infrastructures, implementing different things, etc., etc. We help SaaS companies, and personally help SaaS companies with go-to-market consulting advisory. And we also try to educate more people by doing our webinars, articles, newsletters, etc., etc. And today we prepared something really, really cool. So please wait till the end, because today we're packed with different cool insights that Frank is bringing today. And I will share something as well. So please stay with us till the very end. And we're going to try to be extremely sharp, and we do respect the timing. So let's start. What everyone wants. I know that I'm talking to a lot of people, and everyone wants, I know everyone is talking about this shiny, bright, cool new things, such as, hey, I want to implement buyer signals and triggers. Hey, I want to use some AI personalization on scale. Hey, I want to use Clay. I want to use this, RB2B, Trigify. Oh my God, there are so many cool things, shiny. Oh, nice looking things. But at the end of the day, after talking to those people, I understand that it all makes no sense if your deliverability is really weak. If your emails are going to spam, it just does not really mean how personalized your cold emails are if people don't really see that. Because, surprise, surprise, nobody replies from spam folders. So that is actually a huge problem. That is why we do really need to focus on this question. But at the same time, we need to recognize the current situation. The current situation is all about, okay, open rate is kind of low. It's even hard to detect the open rate. The new domains and mailboxes are trapped by spam quickly. Warm up doesn't really work. You try to turn it on and, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. It shows me 100%, but I'm not quite sure about those things. Open rate decreases in 3 to 4 weeks. We do see there drops in reply rates and different metrics, etc., etc. We don't know what to do. And email providers are evolving and fighting against cold emailing and overall spam even more and more. And on top of that, Google even killed the open tracking. So we all know these stories about, like I guess last August or last September, Google released a new fighting feature against us called emailing, and specifically against open tracking. Just for everyone, back in the days, all the automation platforms, even the marketing automation platforms, used that small invisible pixel to track the opens. And Google always knows that you do have a small invisible image. And now, whenever you send and try to track opens, it is possible that Google will show the small pop-up that, oh, there is a hidden image here. You can report this as a spam. So naturally, a lot of people might just mark it as a spam, and it will kill your deliverability even more.
Yeah, I
So
just say on that, just if you think about it, today you need to do everything that you can to reduce users marking your emails as spam, literally everything. So if the fact that you're tracking open rates and Google starts to show this beautiful button called report as spam, it's going to be killing your infrastructure. So yeah, that's just, one of the reasons why a lot of folks advise not to track opens. But the other reason why folks don't, in a lot of cases, naturally advise not to track opens is because the metric itself is flawed. It's like impression data in Facebook ads, right? What does it give you? Really, what we all, I think, care about is actually the reply rates, right? At the end of the day.
yeah, back in the days, I do remember that actually the open tracking is not accurate enough, because whenever we built the Doxify, that was the email tracking software for the one-on-one personal, not personal business, but one-on-one communication, like Mixmax or Yesware back in the days. We knew the details of why it's not actually accurate, but at the same time, even if it's accurate, what it gives to us, that's a great question. Usually back in the days, we use that metric to understand what's going on with our deliverability. But now, okay, it's even better not to track the open rate. That's one thing. Okay, we all recognize all of those challenges and problems, but at the same time, we do have new challenges, right? We see that a lot of complaints and a lot of problems and challenges whenever you try to reach to Microsoft accounts or to some other different ESP providers. And you might see great deliverability to Google and really bad deliverability to Outlook or something else, et cetera, et cetera. It's becoming a bit inconsistent. You don't quite understand what's going on here. On top of that, this is literally the small images on how Google killed the open tracking. If you open the show original, and if you click three dots, show original, you can always find the small visible pixel if people are using open tracking and whenever they reach out to you. And by default, not by default, but in the majority of cases, you're gonna see this report spam. So it's better not to track even the open tracking. And plus, a lot of other ESPs changes. Like Google is changing, Microsoft is changing, they're evolving. Now, because of that, because of these changes, we need to be really careful about the calling of deliverability. But on top of that, we just need to understand several things, that how our emails become spam. So how it happens. Okay, today we are not spammers, and tomorrow we are spammers. So what is changing, right? Basically, there are a few things. The email providers don't trust you. Okay, this is the basic one, right? The second one, you act as a spammer. Whenever we are talking about, hey, build an amazing deliverability and infrastructure, I always say that we say those things to those who are not spammers. If you're the real scammer, please just, you can leave this webinar. All those secrets are not for you. And of course, people mark you as a spam. So whenever you're sending irrelevant messages, or actually it feels like spammy for a lot of people, they might mark you as spam. And the more people mark you as spam, the worse deliverability you're gonna have. And there are a few things that you can control. Like you can fully control the fact, not fully, but you can actually do a lot of things to control the fact that email providers actually trust you and you're not acting as a spammer. And of course, you partially can control whether people are going to mark you as spam or not, because you need to send relevant messages to the relevant target audience. Be polite, don't say anything extremely wrong, etc., and don't act as a spammer. So by considering those things, we need to focus a lot on the very first two parts of this. When it comes to the third part, it's all about the targeting, the ICP, the buyer persona, your personalization, etc., etc. We are not really covering this in this webinar, so let's focus on the very first 2 points, right? So, and today we're not gonna cover the basic things such as, okay, please don't send the emails from the free Gmail account that you just created and try to sell something with the direct link and so on and so forth. Don't use the aliases. Whenever you create the Google Workspace, you can create different aliases, and it feels like for you, wow, that's a cost-effective way to send cold emails, but it's wrong. Your emails are going to spam in this way with almost 100% guarantee. Don't send too many cold emails from one mailbox and one domain. Don't do that if unless you're extremely confident that everything's going really great there. I wouldn't recommend you that. And of course, don't use the wrong toolset for cold emailing. And when I say wrong toolset, I mean, I'm not talking only about, hey, please don't send the cold emails from MailChimp or from, I don't know, some other tools for email marketing. It's not only about that, but also try to pick the toolset that has deliverability features, that integrates with other deliverability infrastructural products. This is a better way to actually choose the proper product and set up the proper infrastructure around the overall outbound lead generation. And we do have the checklist. If you want, I'm going to send you this checklist after this webinar with the list of the main things that you have to always follow, such as, hey, how to stop SPF or demarc or scheme records, etc., etc. Some other things that you actually need to know. Those are the basics, the fundamentals. You always need to go through this checklist whenever you set up your infrastructure, just to make sure that everything is ready. We do have the some rules for the rotation, monitoring, DNS settings, etc., etc. So it's all in this one checklist. Feel free to check it out. I will gonna send you after this webinar, so no worries. You don't need to take the screenshots, and so all good. And the next thing is, okay, what affects the spam rate? Okay, let's be extremely honest. There are a few things. Of course, the technical domain setup. If your MX record, and just tell me in the chat, do you know what is MX record, DMARC, scheme, SPF? All those things, just say yes or no. So no, okay. So just, okay. The majority of people say yes, but I still see a lot of some people say no. That's why I'm gonna explain you like really quickly. Whenever you set up your domain and the mailboxes, you have an ability to say that, I actually own this mailbox and I actually own this domain, and then you connect those both things. It's super easy to set it up, but it shows that you both actually control and own both of those entities, like the mailboxes and the domains, and plus they are both connected. I'm gonna send you the guide to explain you more about those things, but that's a really important thing. If your emails and domains are not set up properly, you're gonna go to spam by default. And it just does not matter how great your cold emails, how much time you invested into the targeting. If your MX record is set up in the wrong way, within 99% of probability, your emails are going to spam. That is easy as it is. It's simple. It's not simple. It is pretty simple to set it up, but you have to do that. The second one, the email outreach setup. If you're sending a lot of emails from one mailbox, like hundreds or thousands of cold emails per day from one mailbox, it's a really wrong setup of your email outreach tool. On top of that, there are so many other nuances and details when it comes to the email outreach tool setup, but you always need to make sure that you set them up correctly. And if you want, I can also send you the guide on how to set up the main features that you always need to set up in the email outreach tool. Of course, another thing that affects your spam rate, it's the cold email content. If your cold email contains a lot of different colors, a lot of HTML, if you're sending some weird links, etc., of course, by default, your emails are going to be trapped by spam filters. Although, and I say those, I understand that it might sound like, oh, Ilya, you're saying super basic and things, but I know a lot of people are just sending the emails like that. They just don't care about the HTML and just sending like some weird files and images in the emails, even the first initial email. Of course, it is important to also recognize the bounce rate. If you're sending too many emails and they're not delivered just because you use the wrong email address of the recipients, at the end of the day, Google will think, or some other ESP providers will think that, yeah, you're reaching out to too many people that you don't know. Probably you actually don't know them, and probably you're a spammer, because this is exactly what spammers do. And of course, the last thing is recipient's behavior. We definitely need to understand that if people are not engaging with your cold emails, or engaging them with them in the wrong way, in a negative way. They mark it as spam, they delete those emails, etc. It might affect your spam rate as well. So the proper infrastructure consists, and today we do have Frank who's gonna talk about this part a bit more, but the proper infrastructure is all about how to build a proper list of the domains mailboxes, how to set up them correctly, how many emails to send from each domain, from each mailbox, what to use Google or Microsoft or some other options to set up your mailboxes on and send your cold emails from, etc. How to warm up your mailboxes, how to monitor those things, how to fix the problems, etc. All of those things are extremely important, and we're going to cover them today, or at least try. So I'm going to try to be extremely quick because we do have a lot of content today. The first question is how many cold emails to send, right? That's a great question. And everyone does not have a proper answer.
Typically, folks come to me and say, Frank, I want to send 10,000 emails. And it's like, what does it actually mean, you know?
True. And I see that people are asking, oh, how many emails should I send? And say, I don't know. It depends on your metrics. If you have the reply rate, like 50% reply rate, and you need only 10 leads, you understand how many cold emails you should send, right? Etc. It depends on your targeting. It depends on your I see that people are trying to guess what is the actual number. But today I wanted to cover overall amount of emails, overall volume that we should have to send cold emails. And I usually suggest people to think differently about this. I don't want to know how many emails should I send. I need to know how much money should I earn, right? How many leads I should generate. That's a different mindset. Because whenever we think about our bandwidth, we are actually not thinking about the final result. But whenever we start thinking about the final result, okay, I do need to generate 10 leads. And here are my results. Here is my reply rate. Here is my positive reply rate, like MQL to SQL rates, etc. Here is the overall amount of leads I should generate, etc. So whenever we have this mindset, it's way easier for us to calculate the amount of cold emails we should send, considering follow-ups, consider 4 follow-ups, 5 follow-ups, whatever. But this format is going to be easier for us to create. And let's calculate it. Again, we understand how many leads should we generate per month, quarter, whatever. Then we use our metrics. Then we convert those metrics and apply them to the amount of emails we need to create to send. And based on that, we can clearly understand, or kind of clearly understand, the amount of domains we need to create and the mailboxes to create. And I'm going to explain you why. So imagine we need to generate 30 marketing qualified leads. Okay, that's a pretty nice goal, right? For 1 month, that's nice. And we say that we do have, for example, 10% the conversion rate from the reply rate to the marketing qualified lead. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's move on. Okay, that means, and we need to see in order to get 300 replies with our 7% conversion rate from the open rate to the reply rate, we need to reach out to almost 4,000 people, right? Contacts, and I'm not talking about the emails, I'm just talking about the contacts. Then that means considering our overall open rate or whatever, like you can change the metrics here. That means that at the end of the day that we need to reach out to 6,600 contacts per month in order to generate 30 leads. And of course, we can always try to make and optimize the metrics and try to make the conversion rates way better. But I just use that for a basic example, right? And that means we just use this metric: 65% open rate, 4.5 reply rate, 0.45 positive reply rate. Okay, you can use your own metrics. It's all fine. I just chose this.
The way that I look, because I was a former, sales leader of about 50 people, I say, in the funnel, typically it's a 0.5% conversion rate, just generally, but it can get, really bad. But typically, just to book one meeting is like a ballpark figure. It could be literally anywhere between, sort of 200 contacts process all the way to 1,000 contacts just to book one meeting, right? So when you start from this standpoint, damn, to book one meeting, I need to process that many contacts, and this is just contacts, and then every contact you need to send, another follow-up email, maybe 2 follow-up emails, right? That's the scale. And this is just normal maps. It's the same like Google Ads, think about it, in the same way, right? I need to bid, and then this many clicks will happen, and then so on and so forth. And it's the same with here. So it's try and just do what's called backwards analysis. If you're a founder or a sales leader, literally backwards, everything, and you can just estimate it based on your current metrics, right? So if you're running any cold emailing right now, if you want to scale, right, you just kind of calculate, a lot of the stuff. And I always say, don't use kind of general kind of maybe industry data, right? But you should look at your own first party data within your funnel, whatever you have, and try just use kind of whatever you have right now, or even if you're doing manually, right? Of course, when you're going to scale, I think conversion rates will drop slightly. But even if you, I don't know, reduce the conversion rate or drop the conversion rate by, I don't know, 30%, how many mailboxes and domains and all that do you need actually to scale up, right? So that's why infrastructure, is super important, because you just can't simply scale everything from one, primary domain.
Yeah, and of course, if you're making the account-based marketing and your conversions are extremely different and you're only reaching out to 200 contacts per quarter, of course, this does not apply to you. But we are talking about the overall normal, just traditional outbound lead generation with the normal ACV and not billions and billions of dollars, right? Just like the normal ACV. So, okay, but 6,000 contacts, to generate 30 leads, that means for us way more cold emails to send, right? Because we are not just only sending one email and just say, okay, bye-bye. No, we need to send the follow-ups, and this is normal thing. And whenever we just multiply it by 4, considering the amount of follow-ups we want to send, there's going to be 26,000 cold emails to send per month, right? And then we need to calculate how many mailboxes should we create and how many domains should we create, etc., etc. And the real question is, here we need to use different calculation for different types of the ASP providers that we're choosing, etc., etc. But here I'm going to use just a basic example. Imagine we're going to create some amount of domains and mailboxes on Google, just a basic one. And considering the fact that we can send from one mailbox 30 cold emails per day, it should be even less actually. And we consider that we are sending only for 22 days. Okay, that means 660 emails per month. Okay, how many mailboxes should we create overall? It's around 40 mailboxes, right? And the question is, okay, but how many domains? It's going to be from 10 to over to 20, because the ratio between the domain and the mailbox should be pretty much like from 1 to 4, no more than 4 mailboxes on one domain. Of course, we can use different calculations here, but I just want to show you and prove the theme that at the end of the day, we need a lot of resources to generate 30 leads. Of course, we can work on the conversions. We can make our outreach way more targeted, way more personalized. These things are definitely true. But when it comes to scaling, yes.
Well, one thing I just want to mention here. So this is you're talking about like the first sequence outreach. But typically what happens is, because there's only 2 to 3% of the your audience in market for what is it that you're selling, one of the biggest things that you cannot optimize, which is the reason why why you don't get 90% reply rate, is because people are just not in the market for what is it that you sell. You can't optimize the timing a lot, even if you're going to have all the triggers, all the intent, etc. And what I typically say is, okay, you reach out to a prospect. Yes, you send the initial email, you send a follow-up email, maybe another follow-up email, but then what you should do is you should do exactly the same thing the next quarter, essentially reaching out to the same prospect 3 to 4 times a year. So when you do these calculations, I'm just saying, hey, listen, if you have somebody saying, I have a 10K TAM, yes, you process that TAM this quarter, but then you're going to do exactly the same next quarter, unless of course, they opt out. But you should be always essentially touching base with your prospect once a quarter. So you have to think a bit more sort of programmatically, like long term, because yes, they didn't respond in Q1. Yes, they didn't respond in Q2. But guess what? They may respond in Q3, because priorities change typically quarterly. And this is why you should be always chasing the same way. It's like what we do, like internally, right? We process the leads, and so we have still that list. And guess what? I'm going to be messaging them next quarter. You're recycling essentially the same leads. So yes, you still need that kind of capacity that we're talking about on a quarterly basis. So you're going after the same leads, not just net new leads, right? So
yeah. At the same time, you need to understand that once you implement some more advanced things such as the buyer signals, etc., and whenever you have, for example, 10K contacts, and the next quarter you see that 2 or 500 of them actually change the job or something happened there, you actually need to have the capacity to reach out to them and say, hey, I see that this is exactly the moment when I need to talk to you right now. And you need to make sure that your emails are not going to spam. You need to have the ability to scale the output of the emails that you're sending, the volume. And at the same time, you need to have it, you need to make sure that this infrastructure is actually reliable. So whenever you try to scale, you understand that, okay, those emails are going to the inboxes, not the spam folders. And you can always ask me, hey, Ilya, but why that many mailboxes, right? Why that many domains? Why not? Why I cannot just send 200 emails from one mailbox per day? It was possible back in the days, and I'll be surprised with you. It was possible back in the days. But now, if you put all the eggs in just one basket and just start sending a lot of cold emails from one mailboxes, and I hope that not from your main domain, just from the, for example, you create a few new domains and just start sending too many cold emails from one mailboxes, and you think that, okay, this is for me the moment when I can make a budget saver option because I don't need to create a lot of mailboxes. At the end of the day, if something happens with your mailbox, if something happens with your domain, and it's quite possible, you're going to lose a huge capacity. And then you need to start from scratch. That is why, in order to make sure that your infrastructure is more reliable and not fragile, we usually highly recommend you to start splitting and scaling horizontally. The more cold emails you need to send, the more mailboxes you need to use to send those cold emails. So whenever you send only 5 or 10 cold emails per day from one mailbox, and everything is great, those are personalized, people are replying to you, you're doing a really great job with technical setup, etc., the chances that Google or Microsoft or someone else gonna ban you, I mean, like in terms of you're gonna be trapped by spam filters, is not that high. And plus, even if something happens, you just lost one domain and lost one or two mailboxes. At the end of the day, how many you're gonna lose just a small volume of the message that you can send, and then you can just recover that easily. And if you put all the eggs in one basket, oh my God, that's a really bad thing. At the same time, I'm saying to, and considering the fact that don't use your main domain for sending cold emails, because if something happens really bad, and that is possible, we all people, we can make mistakes. We can send the cold email campaign to the wrong audience, etc., and you're gonna lose your main domain, and your normal business communication emails are going to be trapped by spam. This is gonna be a huge damage on your brand. So let's think about how to scale horizontally. And then when it comes to how to scale horizontally, it's definitely true that we need to create the domains. And back in days, just like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, we did a really great webinar where we dive deeper into the data about, okay, what is the deliverability rate based on 50 million of emails and domains that were used for those campaigns, and what was the actual metrics based on the domain age. And in reality, the difference between the domains that you create throughout the ages, like 2 to 3 years old domains, are pretty much as good as just 1 year or like few months old domains. It's all okay. You still cannot buy domain today and start sending cold emails right away, as many as it's possible. No, but if you just start working with this carefully, you can start building the right infrastructure, not in 1 year, but pretty soon. At the same time, when it comes to the domains, Frank has way more information about this, but I'm gonna just go quickly through that. There are a few types of domains, right? .com is kind of the best domain. I know that based on this research, one of the best types of the domains, it's the local domains, such as if you want to reach out to only French market, you can use .fr, right? So, or some other types of local domains. Those type of domains are basically fine to use. The worst types of domains are usually .xyz, or the cheapest domains to buy. Like, I wouldn't say that.
The reason for that is because a lot of bad actors just use them. A lot of spammers like really use the cheapest possible domains, just start blasting. And then all the, on the recipient's end, when they see this bad behavior, these bad apples, essentially, they just by default start, saying no to these emails, because typically if all emails are bad from these TLDs, then that's it. They could just ban the whole TLD. So you would essentially no email would ever arrive in the inbox of the employee. So this is why don't always think about buying the cheapest TLDs. Just buy the TLDs that essentially have quite a good probability of landing in the primary. So
yeah. And the next question, okay, we understand that we need to buy better domains. We understand that now we need to calculate and understand that we need to have the capacity to send cold emails. Okay, the question is, okay, what ESP provider to choose? Okay, what email provider to choose? Should I all in with Google? Should I all in with Microsoft? Should I make some SMTP? Should I use some SMTP providers only? Or what, like, so a lot of questions here, right? And my honest answer, it's usually use the multi-layer infrastructure. Have both Google mailboxes on some domains. On the next, a bunch of the domains, use Microsoft mailboxes. On another, use SMTP providers, etc., etc. So here, there is no right or wrong. It's better, but for me, and usually whenever we implement the infrastructure, we try to implement the diversified infrastructure in terms of the mailboxes that you might use, both on Google, Microsoft, and SMTP infrastructure, dedicated infrastructure for your cold emailing. So you can always see what's going on there, etc., etc. And if something happens with Google, okay, you do still have the capacity, and so on and so forth. We want to diversify the risks, because anti-fragile infrastructure is all about diversifying the risks. Okay, so when it comes to the Google versus Microsoft versus SMTP, usually it's not fully proven, but usually whenever you send emails to Google from Google, you actually, Google knows way more about you than whenever you send from Google to Microsoft. So like Google knows way more about yourself rather than Microsoft. And even if you use shared IP address, that is actually spammy enough, but Google knows that you are not the one who actually made this IP address spam, and you're just sending those emails from that place. It's fine for Google because they know it's not you, and your emails might not go to spam. Vice versa, when it comes to the Microsoft, your reputation is based on the IP address that you're using as well for sending cold emails. And at the end, sometimes it's better to use the provider matching whenever you have the diversified infrastructure. So you're gonna send emails from Google to Google, so Google knows who you are, and from Microsoft to Microsoft, so Microsoft knows who you are, and this is not just nobody from nowhere. You're not fully anonymous. And from SMTP infrastructure to just both ESP providers and some extra that people are using. But this is a normal way of building the infrastructure, the diversified infrastructure. So this is exactly also why we are building it both with Google and Microsoft, because whenever we need to send from Microsoft to Microsoft, we need to have the Microsoft mailboxes, right? And you can ask me, hey, but how many mailboxes should I create on Google and how many on Microsoft, right? And the real answer is, this is a stupid example, right? If you want to reach out to more enterprisey market, you should go with Microsoft because they usually use Microsoft. If you're going to reach out to small, medium businesses, you go with Google. And this is just a basic advice I can give. But here is a way better advice. You can go to Amex Toolbox or whatever, like any, almost a lot of tools actually check what ESP provider your contacts or the domains you want to reach out to are actually using. And by using Amex Toolbox, it's a free tool, you can upload the list of domains that you want to reach out to in this campaign and see who of them are using Microsoft, who of them are using Google. This is just like the simple process. And boom, you can see that, okay, the 30% of them are using Microsoft, 60% of them are using Google, and we're going to use that in our calculation whenever it comes to building the mailboxes when it comes to Google and Microsoft. Okay, that means for us that 60% or 70% of the mailbox should be on Google, 30% are going to be on Microsoft, and then it's going to be the right ratio. And yes, I'm going to answer you a few questions, but I see some questions here.
Yeah, somebody's asking whether SendGrid is a good tool to use for cold emailing. What do you think?
No.
That was a short answer. Essentially, it's SendGrid. If you look at the TNCs, SendGrid is against cold emails. SendGrid should be used only for transactional emails. What does happen if you use SendGrid is you can be banned easily if they go hunting. Essentially, there's many providers essentially that where internal teams will go hunt you down and will ban your account. And that's it. But you could use SendGrid many years ago, and a lot of people think, oh yeah, let's use SendGrid. But SendGrid or Mailgun, etc., all of that is for what's called transactional emails, inbound emails, all that stuff. For cold emailing, that is literally multi-domain approach, multi-mailbox approach, what's called ESP, so email service provider approach to de-risk. Because by de-risking, by diluting the sending across multiple infrastructure domains, etc., you're increasing your average deliverability. So,
yeah, but I just want to tell you about the toolset, guys. It's important. When I say the right toolset, I by default mean not to use the tools that were not designed for the cold emailing. So I'm talking that please don't use that by default. Like totally no, don't use that. In the long run, it's in the mid run, actually in the short run as well. It's actually a bad choice and bad decision to use tools like MailChimp or SendGrid for sending cold emails. They're not designed for cold emailing. You can be banned, and your deliverability going to be really bad actually because they are not designed for cold email.
Somebody's talking about HubSpot and Marketo. So all of that is like, newsletter stuff, opted in. But for opt-outs, you need to use different, tooling naturally.
Yeah. Plus, when I say about the proper tool set for the cold email, I usually mean that even among the cold outreach, the tools that were designed for the cold email outreach, there's a lot of tools that were not designed like up to the day. So in terms, like what I mean is that, for example, whenever you go all-in-one solutions, such as like super famous on the market, they might not be really great in terms of deliverability because they just don't provide you enough features that just are modern and that are important on the market right now. And I do have my own list of the tools that I would not recommend you for sending cold emails from, even among the tools that were designed. But I can tell you about that. So, for example, I'm not quite sure that Apollo is a great tool for sending cold emails, actually, just because it's the tool it's the one solution, and their cold email engine, the system to send cold emails, is not designed pretty great in terms of like the amount of features that they have for deliverability specifically. Yes, it might be a great solution if you have overall system and built within Apollo. Okay, it's up to you. But from the deliverability point of view, I wouldn't say that it's a great solution. What do you think? I know that it's your competitor, but still, probably you have the
89% of customers of Apollo use Apollo for data only, and then they execute that data somewhere else. So actually, they execute in Salesforce, as an example, or they execute other tools that are really designed from a deliverability standpoint. Now, exactly what you're saying, Ilya, a bunch of these legacy providers, essentially, they just don't specialize in deliverability. And the reason why that's the case is because their take is that deliverability as a problem, that's something that the customer is accountable for. But I think we all can agree, guys, here that, it's not like you're pros and you all know what you're doing, so you don't have the competence to solve your deliverability problem. That's why we're on this webinar. Then the other approach could be like, oh, let's hire an email deliverability expert. Well, typically companies don't have a headcount. You can hire naturally Ilya to sort it out for you. And then if you have an engineering team by any chance, engineers don't know how to solve deliverability, right? So typically, you need to just use solutions that really solve these, root problems of why you're not successful. And that's, deliverability. If you're not solving deliverability, and infrastructure is part of what I call one of the core 4 pillars of solving your success in cold email. Like if you're not solving the infrastructure, solving all the other bits, copy, etc., you're just not going to be successful these days in cold, because essentially cold email and all of that stuff is as difficult as running Google Ads campaigns. But essentially, the difference is if you're going to fuck it up, in cold email, it's not going to cost you as much as Google Ads, because Google Ads is like a bottomless pit essentially. so yeah.
Yeah. By the way, thanks for mentioning, guys. If you want to build and implement a really anti-fragile cold email structure, please feel free to reach out to me. We might help you. So what we actually do, we actually build the anti-fragile cold email structure. We setting up all the tools, all the technical things, etc., etc. So feel free to submit the form, and we might have a chat and see whether we can help you or not. But yes, the proper tool set is extremely important. And when I say extremely, I mean usually extremely important for the cold email sending. Right now, again, as I told you, I'm not alone. We do have Frank here. And Frank, would it be okay for you to start sharing the screen? Because Frank is prepared um, some really cool things for you and some really good insights. And I'm really happy that we do have Frank today here, just because Frank is actually building the ecosystem, not only for the sending, but also building the infrastructural things. So he has a lot of insights and cool things to share.
And
And
just
I will go,
made a
yes, yes,
friend
yes.
from you so I can share it from you.
And while Frank is sharing the information, I'm gonna send you the list of links to the guides, etc., etc. But at the same time, I will answer some of your questions that you have, like if it's possible for me to answer in a written form, if it's a like simple question. Okay, so Frank, are you able to share the screen?
Yes, sir. Let me just share the screen a bit. Boom, and ta-da! So, guys, so we talked about a lot about infrastructure, etc. But a lot of folks are like, talking about deliverability. But at the end of the day, so I think Ilya showed a few screenshots. What you want to do is you want to make sure just, are you landing actually in spam or not? And to do that, you can use a bunch of tools on the market like MailReach, or we have our own tool called WarmForge, just to check whether you're landing in the primary or not, right? So how many emails are actually going to spam? And majority of the emails should be really landing in the primary to feel good. It's not about making sure that all emails land in the primary, but majority, like 90, let's go 5%, if they do land in the primary, then it's all good. There's no such a thing as spam-free experience. Some will land, but majority have to be going into the primary. So doing consistently these health checks, meaning placement tests on a, it depends on the volume, but like at least once a month, just check out, your secondary infrastructure. Just make sure you're landing in the primary. If you're doing like large volume sending, so we have some customers that send literally millions of emails on a monthly basis. I tell them to do it on a weekly basis at least, if not daily, just to see what, if any of the domains has burned, any mailbox has burned. So definitely placement tests should be on your agenda as part of your maintenance of your infrastructure. Now, we talked about a lot about, Outlook, Gmail. Yeah, there's a couple of solutions that we do like MailForge, InfoForge. The difference really is, so there's like typically two types of infrastructure. There's the what's called a shared IP pool infrastructure provider. So like Google and Outlook, you literally are on the IP address with other businesses, right? And it's like, depends whether whether the apples are good or bad, on that IP pool, right? That's how it dictates. But typically, Google does a really good job and Outlook does a really good job to make sure the IPs are good, and then they replace the IPs. But the worst case, what has happened to me once, I remember I did set up a Google mailbox and I was already blacklisted by default, and that's because Google hasn't rotated that shared IP. Now, there's another approach in a concept called what's called dedicated IPs. That means that IP belongs to you. And if you're doing a fantastic job around making sure you craft the relevant copy in the right language of the recipient, sending to the right people, etc. If you're doing a good job and you religiously follow cold email deliverability practices to the brim, you should be using dedicated IPs, right? If you're doing a bad job, an average job, use shared IPs, right? So this is pretty much what's available right now today in the market. And the reason, why you should diversify is just think of it this way, right? So Google and Outlook, they can just keep on introducing these restrictions more and more. We expect actually more restrictions this year. You should definitely diversify, because if something will happen to Google, if something will happen to Outlook, you have other infrastructure going on as well. So always think about it, back of your mind. Like how do we run our stuff, for example? We run millions of emails ourselves on a monthly basis. We grow like crazy from 0 to 3 million in 12 months and a bunch of employees, etc. But what we do, we also use all these three types of infrastructure, right, to deliver into the primary of our, customers, or potential customers. So the ultimate setup, in my perspective, is if you use 2 to 4 email service providers, you typically see an increase in reply rate by 15 to 35%, just by increasing more email service providers, because you have diversified, right? You maybe are using ESP matching, etc. So by default, you will be more successful if you use more than one infrastructure provider right now. So if you're just using Google, you're missing out. If you're just using Outlook, you're missing out. If you're just using SMT, you're missing out, right? So we run right now on 3-4 ESPs at all times. To maximize and ensure also that we also would minimize what's called the burn rate of the infrastructure. How can you minimize the burn? Because essentially domains do burn. They typically burn within 4 to 6 months that we're seeing, sort of on average, if you're consistently kind of using them. So you do need to replace them. But if you kind of, as I said, if you diversify and got more ESPs, then the burn rate of your domains just reduces significantly. Now, on a dedicated IP, one thing, just a piece of advice, do not use any infrastructure providers where they sort of recycle IPs, etc. It's a really bad practice. Here's one example. So I've run a placement test. where I run a placement test on the burned IP. I literally set up a burned IP and our own product, and you can see all the emails have landed in the spam. And then just briefly after a few days, I just replaced the whole IP, and boom, all the all the emails landed in the primary. And the difference is just the IP address of that infrastructure provider, where the IP has been replaced to a brand new clean IP, and everything's landing in the primary. So just if you're using something that's more sort of dedicated, like dedicated IPs, just make sure you have clean, fresh IPs always provisioned to you, and you're looking after your IPs, because you will be landing in the in spam if somebody has done something bad to your IP, right? So typically that's Google, Microsoft, and all the bunch of anti-spam softwares out there. Now, I want to show you some cool data in a bit, but Ilya already mentioned the number one domain TLD, so the TLD to buy is .com. And the reason for that is because it's not because they're technically different by any means, but .com domains, most of the internet has been built on .com. So from a user standpoint, users are just less suspicious about .com domains. They're less likely to report that, to click on that spam button that you have seen. So as a result, that's pretty much the reason why I should be buying .com. And of course, there's definitely the second best options like .co, .net, .org, .site.io, all these, right? So they also exist, but really, if you want to be sort of what I call maxing your deliverability, .com, we always recommend .com, nothing else. And I'm going to show you some data behind that as well. So this is our data. So we have a gazillion, millions of domains that we sell on an annual basis. And you can see we've been always preaching hardcore that you should be buying .com. So you can see that this is what we sell, 93% .com domains. Everything else kind of doesn't matter because everybody's trying to improve their deliverability. Now, if you look at everything after .com, then you can see what are the TLDs that people buy, and you can see local TLDs. So just like Ilya has mentioned, when you go into France, if you go into, I don't know, a bunch of other markets, and there's a lot of email volume that you should be processing, definitely buy the local domains, because local domains are even more powerful, from my perspective, than the global domains like .coms and .cos, etc., right? So definitely, I would personally definitely recommend. In our case, it doesn't make sense because when we send emails across Europe, US, China, whatever, not China actually. I don't think the Chinese needed our infrastructure, but a bunch of places around the world. .com is just kind of general domain that you use. But if for some reason I would say, okay, that's it, we're penetrating the French market, I'll just buy a bunch of French domains. Now, how many mailboxes on average are being bought? As I said, we have millions of mailboxes. You can see, just like we've been saying, Ilya has been saying, 2, 3, 4 mailboxes. You can see 2 mailboxes is the number one. We always say 2 is number one, especially the folks that have gazillions of emails, typically millions of emails on a monthly basis. They typically set up 2 mailboxes per domain. So that's a typical setup. And we also typically say that, but naturally can become more expensive from a domain standpoint because you need to buy more domains. Then we typically say, okay, if not 2, definitely 3. And then you can see there's these like 1 mailbox, 5 mailbox, 4 mailboxes, but you don't see more than 5 because that's exactly, nobody has ever bought in our infrastructure more than 5 domains ever. Now on the 1 mailbox, why would you set up 1 mailbox? Typically, think of it this way: if your ticket sizes are like very high, you're selling, let's say, a 6-figure deal typically, so every opportunity is 6 figures, then you want to be definitely making sure that you're increasing the probability of always landing in the primary. So the way you do that, you just set up 1 mailbox and only send 30 cold emails, literally 1 mailbox, 1 domain. So I'll literally have the first customer of our infrastructure product is that guy. He is in fintech, he's in the UK. Every opportunity is 6 figures. He's like, Frank, I cannot afford to land in spam. Literally, he can't afford to land in spam. So I said, okay, if you can't afford, then it's 1-to-1 ratio, 1 mailbox, 1 domain, right? So he literally bought like 200 domains, 200 mailboxes. That's it, and he's happy that he's still a customer with us since day 0. So this is an example, essentially big deals, big tickets, 6 figures, 7 figures. In those cases, always 1 domain, 1 mailbox. That's what I recommend. Now, what is the performance by TLD last 30 days, looking at the Forge data? You can see a lot of kind of data, reply rates, bounce rates. This is literally raw data that I just pulled for you guys. Unsubscribe rates, what are the unsubscribe rates? They're always the funny thing with the Germans. Germans love to unsubscribe. You can see 16% for .de. But naturally, you can see significantly higher reply rates for some of the domains, right? And what is the .com one? Well, it's 0.6. And this is just aggregate data, right? So if you're just aggregating everything, what is the reply rate? What are the bounce rates? And so on and so forth. So that's how it looks like. Now, the other thing I just want to mention, which is super important, because there's a lot of solutions on the market. There's a lot of, let's call it average Joes just popping up and just keep spinning up stuff, make sure that when you're spinning up this infrastructure, you are what's called in a good warm-up pool. So there's a lot of good warm-up pools, there's a lot of bad ones as well at the same time. And you can ask on Reddit, whatever, just, do your research, but just don't just, set up your infrastructure and then just plug in some random warm-up pool and expect, to have good results. We've literally seen infrastructure burn within the 2 weeks warm-up period, which has to happen before you even start cold emailing. And that's because you've been warming up with the bad apples. You want to make sure you're not warming up with the bad apples, with a lot of sensitive senders in the crypto space, casino space, etc. All these are sensitive senders. Do not warm up with them. So highly recommend to stay out of the what I call warm-up pools when they don't do any cleaning, any policing, etc. Make sure you're in a clean warm-up pool with other non-sensitive senders. Super important. And then within the warm-up pool, you want to make sure that the bounce rate is as close to 0% as possible, because if you're bouncing in a warm-up pool, the bounce rate is a hard variable that Google Microsoft looks at. It's not doing any good to you if in the warm-up pool you keep on bouncing kind of back and forth. So these are kind of some of the things. So yeah. The other thing I highly recommend, if you're like a big sender, you want to scale up, you want to go to 10,000 emails, so on a weekly basis, whatever, essentially you want to scale. Definitely keep a batch of essentially additional domains just on hand, because as I said, domains can burn. And I did mention domains burn typically between 4 to 6 months. That's just average, So if your infrastructure burns, so if you're not tracking opens, how are we tracking this? Typically, you can see that you get a consistent inflow of replies coming in, and just boom, it just tanks. Then you know most likely it has burned. It's time to replace. And because time is money, right? And you need to warm up for at least 2-3 weeks or so. Like, you can't afford to wait these 2-3 weeks. Actually, it's much cheaper for you if you have this batch of domains lying around, so you can quickly replace these burned domains. So I highly recommend. So all the pros in the space, they do have another batch just lying around, because time is money. So, and the last slide I want to share with you guys is some of you are probably going after the big boys, the Fortune 500 companies, right? And they're using all these softwares, like Proofpoint, etc., and delivering to those guys is pretty difficult. In those cases, I typically recommend just to use Google Workspace and Microsoft, because they have the best reputation with those big guys. But still, even in that case, they easily block and ban you, whatever. And here's an example. We're looking at Salesforce.com, right? Very similar name to us, to Salesforce. And you can see that they're also using Proofpoint, one of the top anti-spam softwares in the world. So essentially, delivering to those guys is super difficult. So what I'm trying to say that is, yes, you could be banking in cold email, but it shouldn't be the only channel actually in enterprise sales or going after the big guys. Definitely diversify. Like in this particular case, one of the things that's super important is the strategy. Don't send 4 emails. Just send 1 or 2 emails, really, because again, if somebody internally within Salesforce decides to sort of block you through Proofpoint, that's it. It informs the whole network, and that's your block everywhere essentially, right? So also kind of be mindful how many emails to the same recipient you're sending. I typically, with those guys, I said, 1 initial email, maybe max 1 follow, that's it. And that's after 7-day delay. Don't just, send emails like I sent 1 today and the next day. Of course, you're going to get banned very fast. So this is actually the most problematic space, the most difficult recipients to land in. But again, I bet Ilya can help on that topic as well. Yeah. Awesome. That's it, I think, from my side.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Just a few questions. I do see. I tried to cover the questions in the text format. So, but I still see that some people are asking questions. Guys, feel free to ask any questions right now. We're gonna answer them during this next few minutes, and then we're gonna finish the webinar. Yeah, by the way, we're gonna send the recording and all of those things. Feel free. I shared with you the link to the Frank's LinkedIn profile and also to the list of products. The most exciting product when it comes to building the infrastructure for me personally is the InfraForge. This is the product that I'm sharing with you right now. This is basically the place, the platform where you can build the entire SMTP back to infrastructure for your cold email, and pretty easy to manage, etc., etc. I actually enjoyed this product, so I actually like this. So and there are a few questions in the chat. The first one, Frank, what are you doing? Are you actually adding the unsubscribe link, or just saying the text, hey, please, if you want me to stop, please say stop, or something like this? How do you approach the unsubscribing?
Okay, so think of it this way. So the goal is to not receive a spam report. That's really the primary goal. So if you have a kick-ass copy, targeting is awesome. um, then I would have like a funny PS line saying, if you want to really ruin my day, tell me to stop, right? Kind of something like funny. Ultimately, you want to be getting as many replies as possible, even negative ones, to tell you to stop, even to send you some way, whatever, because these replies improves the engagement. So it depends on the ICP. However, if you're looking to more aggressively to reach out to your prospects, definitely have the unsubscribe link, because if you're not going to have the unsubscribe link, then people are going to report, are more likely to report your spam. So then it depends really on the copy and the target. It's not a clear cut. In our case, what we do, so my reps, so I have 3 sales reps, they use the PS line to say, to opt out. I personally just testing right now the unsubscribe header, because you can also put it in the header of the email as well. That's another way. But my least favorite option is to have the link at the bottom, in the body in the email. That's my least. So because there's 3 options essentially to kind of think about this. So least favorite is the link, because when you look at the link, you're like already psychologically, it's a cold email, don't want to answer back. But if it's in the header, because a person can easily click on it, that's cool. So I like that personally. And then my personal second favorite is the PS line. But again, depends on the ICP, depends on whether, who you're sending to. Again, it depends on case by case basis.
I do have my opinions here as well. My favorite one is also the unsubscribe in header. Why? Because of this, not only the fact that you're not adding the link within the cold email, but also the fact that you show to the ESP providers that you actually let people to unsubscribe. But the second thing, if you're still writing this in the text version, one of the things that we noticed after testing like of the huge scale of cold emails is that whenever you change the position of the unsubscribed text, and you're not adding this at the end, but you're actually mixing it within the text and randomizing the place for the unsubscribing, it actually improves your deliverability. The thing is that we all know that Google and other ESP providers, they're actually understanding the context of your email and whether it's actually spam or not. Definitely true. You might be using some tools, some approaches like spin text, to randomize some things. You can add some personalization, etc., etc. But overall, the structure of your email is going to be the same, right? And what we try to do is actually to change the position of this unsubscribing text and put it in different ways, sometimes even on the top. And actually, it improved our deliverability pretty well. That is an interesting case for you to see. Then a few more questions. The follow-ups, 30 per domain or mailbox? I usually say from 10 to 30 emails sent per day per mailbox. What is your choice?
I would say no more than 100 cold emails per domain per day. That's the other way. Like if you think about domains, like definitely no more. But again, as I said, it depends on spam. Like what's your think on how many spam reports you're getting? Are you doing a good job on the copy? Do you have a high engagement rate? Essentially, the more replies you're getting, the more lax you can be, the more emails you're going to be sending, right? But if you get barely any, like the replies are very low, that means you have to be dropping kind of the volume. That's kind of my general take.
There is one more thing that you can actually set up if you are using the Google mailboxes to send cold emails. You might, I can even show to you right now. Right now I do have, I guess, that in the presentation, another one. Just give me a second. I will show you one more thing to track. We didn't really talk about how to track the things and how to monitor your deliverability. We just talked about how to build it, building the whole infrastructure. But when it comes to the monitoring, there is one more
It's a
thing
placement
that I want.
one way, but yeah, there's multiple ways to do that.
Yeah, just give me a second. Just give me a second, sorry guys. Frank, could you please cover the next question
Sure.
in the Q&A?
So follow up two, click-through rate, okay. I mean, yes, if you want to enable tracking on the follow-up emails, that's totally fine. Like any tracking in the first email is bad, but tracking and HTML, all that stuff in the second emails is totally okay. I guess that's your question, Mike. So we answered that live. You have another question, Mike. Can burn domains be fixed and how? I mean, the way you look at it is like you can rotate the domain. So let's say you use the domains, you see they're burnt for a bit. And then you definitely want, as I said, you have this other batch of domains. You then use these other batch of domains. So you can replace them quickly and then just keep them in the warm up. They may recover but I can tell you that all the pros, if the domains have burned, they just drop them. They buy brand new domains and then they never go back to them. If you're budget conscious, yeah, keep them in a warm-up pool. They can recover, then run some placement tests to see if they recovered, and then you can kind of have them back in and again, spinning the email essentially.
One more thing that I wanted to share is basically the fact that if you are sending from Google to Google, you might use Postmasters or Postmark or Postmasters. I forgot the name of the tool.
Postmasters, yeah.
That will actually show you the percentage of the people who marked you as a spam. This is a free tool by Google, and the thing is that here it's really important to understand and analyze this data properly, because whenever you see the huge spike, that means that these, like a lot of people actually, like 4%, actually marked your email as spam, manually went and marked it as spam. It doesn't mean that it went to spam. It means that they marked it as a spam. And the thing is that after this one spike or 2 second spike, you see it might be sometimes a plateau. And you see that a lot of people might not marking you as spam. But it might be the only reason for that. It might be because your emails are already going to spam. So take a look at this data properly, and you can actually look at it's Postmaster. So what's the name of this tool? I forgot. This is by
Google
Google.
Postmasters, yeah.
Yes. And they actually show it. It's and whenever you send from Google to Google, for other ASP partners, no, you cannot see that. But whenever you're reaching out to Google, that is basically pretty interesting data to take a look at as well. Yeah.
I'll a few of them as well, so we can get through some of them. So Kevin's asking, and if you're reaching out to company, regardless of how many people in the company do you think is an ideal number to reach out to? Well, I guess it depends, but I always say, if it's like, essentially 11 plus employee company, like 2 stakeholders of the company, either you're reaching out in parallel or sequentially, super important. So that's a question by Kevin. Because naturally, if you start multi-threading, across email and then also LinkedIn, all of that increases the probability of you landing, that opportunity with that company, right? So I'm a big believer in sort of programmatically reaching out to at least 2 stakeholders at the company at 11 plus employee kind of size to increase the conversion rate within the funnel. One is like less than 10 employees, right? So hopefully having that is helpful. And the last one, what is a good percentage reply rate average? It depends, on the industry, right? So if you're going after the big boys like Fortune 500, 1% and probably 2% is like really good. If those guys, big guys, everybody's targeting them, right? So, but I would say, my campaigns recently, I had really good lists, good copy, etc. I would say 3 to 5% is like really good reply rates, somewhere in that range. And then from that, 10 to 20% positive reply rate. That means 1 in 10, 2 in 10 reply positively. Like the benchmark of what really good is 20% positive reply rate from total replies is what you're doing a kick-ass good job. If you're doing above that, you're crushing it, right? But this is when you're selling a software, a service, etc. If you're selling some freebies, of course, your reply rates go up and positive reply rates go up, etc. Right? So you can definitely manipulate these replies in a bunch of different ways. But hopefully, Alejandro, that kind of gives you a good understanding. But essentially, if you're like lingering at 1% or less for non-Fortune 500 companies, probably you can definitely improve something. But guys, probably the easiest way just to look at just generally success in cold email. I typically like to say these 4 pillars. 1 is use the right email tool to send emails, like execution strategy. 2, infrastructure. We discussed that. 3 is the copy, making sure the copy is relevant, personalized, etc. 4 is the data, sending to the emails to the right people. These are really in my head, kind of always I think about it. They're really the 4 pillars of success. If something is working, it's probably because you're doing a good job across 4 of them. If something is broken, 1 or 2 pillars typically are responsible for why things are failing. So hopefully, Alejandro, that was insightful. And then Matteo, final one. What would be considered as good length in terms of characters, also space for cold email? I don't know, typically short and snappy, so like 50 to 100, but one insight which I found interesting for Germany, so the DACH space essentially, is that the longer the emails you write, typically the better the reply. I don't know why the Germans like longer emails, but this is definitely a trend that we observed. If you write like super lengthy emails in Germany, and Austria, etc., for some reason the reply rates are going up because I think people are just suspicious about the shorter emails, So that's just kind of the trends that we observed.
The thing is that I also have a huge experience with working with the German market. The thing is there, you have all the best practices on how to write cold emails, right? Keep it short, personalized, bam, 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 all those things, right? You can see that all over the LinkedIn or anywhere. And if you follow all those rules, you're gonna fail with the German market. Go the other way, like go the fully opposite way. Keep it long, say who you are, explain in more details, etc., etc. Just share way more information that people need to know, and so on and so forth, and then it might work. Actually, so it's pretty interesting, and they also do have the experience cold emailing when it comes to the lengths of the cold emails. The thing is that I'm not that skeptical of the long emails. Why? Because usually if you do a really great precise targeting and actually find the most relevant people in the most relevant companies, and when I say the most relevant, it just doesn't mean that they fit the size of the company or the industry, but you definitely understand some signals that show to you that these companies actually facing the problem that you're solving, and you know that in more details. I sometimes go with longer emails by explaining them exactly what they feel and what is the current challenges that they might have because of those things. Yes, it's a smaller scale on a smaller scale, because I don't have a lot of companies like that in my list, but it's always dynamic. And the longer emails working pretty fine. It just doesn't work on default campaigns. True, I try to keep it shorter, but on the really precise targeted campaigns, it might work. So don't think that something is extremely right or extremely wrong. It depends on how do you use that and how do you actually apply that. By default, yes, shorter email is better. True, I
Yeah,
agree.
Kevin just asking also in chat, didn't quite catch the deal character. So 50 to 100, characters, letters, that's what I would just take. The shorter, the better. Just think of it this way. If you can, and I typically say, like, you don't have to even pitch the product or the service in the first email. Try to pitch the problem. Like, try to validate whether your prospect has that particular pain or problem that you're looking to solve. And then you can pitch maybe the product even in the second email, because really the pain or the problem that you're solving for the customer matters a lot more than the thing that you're reaching out about, right? So if they have the pain, they will reply back to you, say, sure, what do you have in offer? How can you solve my pain, etc. That's just kind of piece of advice generally about the characters. Like, don't try to over engineer too much. I think there's a saying, no pain, no gain, no demo train. So talk about the pain first and foremost in the first email, and then you can talk about, what is there to gain by working with you in the second email, etc. Then somebody's asking about GDPR. We're not officially advising on all topics of GDPR. Read everything online, right? GDPR changes on a daily basis. By the way, GDPR and legislation differs by country also in Europe. So, for example, in Denmark, it's illegal to send cold emails internally, domestically. There's also a major overhaul, let's say, in Poland, etc. Essentially, every part of the world is different. But guess what, guys? We're all sending cold emails. I think there's a way, right? But we're not legal advisors on the topic of GDPR, CCPA, and etc. Just be a good Samaritan and make sure people have the ability to opt out. Don't just bombard them with emails. Send good emails. Don't send too many of them. Always be top of mind. And the most important is just to make sure they have the clear ability to opt out from any further communication. But again, we're not legal advisors. You should guys read online. There's a lot of material by the EU themselves. Are there a bunch more questions?
I see one more. Let's make let's answer the last question. It's from Matteo. I usually do 20% of my list A/B testing. Then I check it whether it's work A or B is working, etc. And then the winner, I scale the winner. That's I will try to answer about our approach, and then Frank can share his approach. The thing here is that we usually build the framework where we do have the ICP, several buyer personas within the ICP, and the ICP is extremely detailed. And after that, we have the list of hypotheses that we want to test. We don't have the A or B. In terms of the text or the subject line, sometimes it just does not really matter. So we might A/B test inside the campaign. But the real question here is, what are the pains that we articulate? What are the challenges that we articulate? How do we act? What is the angle that we take a look at within this campaign or for this specific ICP and buyer persona? So what we try to do, we try to find the right fit between the ICP buyer persona value proposition, and it reflects in our hypothesis. Then we try to test the hypothesis on smaller scales, but extremely fast, in order to see which one is actually working. And it's not A/B; it's basically A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. Testing not of the subject line or a specific line in the text, but mostly on the problem, the value proposition fit, etc., etc. Once we find that, after that, we usually try to scale it on a bigger scale to see, okay, whether it's actually reliable to scale this hypothesis or not, or we were just lucky. And after that, we might work on the optimization of the overall metrics by implementing some personalization or some changing some things, etc., etc. Whenever we have already the default, already understanding the default hypothesis that we're using, and after that we might be testing in basically in the way that you're sharing, like just okay, then we A/B test the subject line and see.
The only thing I will say here is that so A/B testing. So if a lot of you guys have worked in marketing, etc., there needs to be what's called statistical significance. If you're just testing like 10 leads, it's like nothing. It's like tossing a coin. Like I typically say, it doesn't matter whether it's an A/B or A/B/C test. Doesn't matter. In every variant, you should be testing, in my eyes, 1,000 leads. So if you want to run an A/B test in one variant, you want to run 1,000, another one, another 1,000, that's a good test. But if you're just running 100 leads side by side, it's like tossing a coin. Like there's a lot of variables that impact that, and you'll say, oh, this works better than that. But really, you haven't run through enough leads. And if you want to calculate statistical significance, there's a bunch of tools on the internet as well that helps you to calculate statistical significance in the world of cold email as well. So just have a look at that because just be careful about A/B. A lot of people feel good about A/B tests. Oh, I run an A/B test. This variant has one, but you haven't run enough volume for this to be statistically significant. So any statisticians will just laugh at you. So just kind of keep that in mind, guys. So.
Yeah, I try to keep. I try to actually you have it in mind, but I usually prioritize the velocity of the learning from the working with the audience, just to find out, okay, what actually, at least whenever I don't quite understand this audience, I'm just learning this audience, and I don't have a strong feeling that I know the exact problems, and I just like kind of have the feeling, but I don't have a strong feeling. Then I'm just trying to do velocity to see, okay, different angles, and then talk to people, and then based on the conversations, learn way better and way faster. So for me, learning, I just try to prioritize learning more on top of that to see how it's working, by keeping in mind that, okay, definitely statistically significant significancy, it's extremely important. So guys, thanks a lot. Frank, thanks a lot for coming today. Guys, first of all, please go and connect with Frank on LinkedIn, so you can see his really great content on LinkedIn. That's one. Second, if you want to take a look at everything that Frank is working on, go and check out his products. The very first product I would recommend to check is Frank AI, I guess, because it's pretty on hype and it's pretty nice. But when it comes to building the infrastructure, I would highly recommend to take a look at the InfraForge. What else? You can reach out to me as well. And if you need some help with building and level up your in-house outbound lead generation by making the great audit, building the strategy, implementing some different tool sets, building the anti-fragile cold email infrastructure, we might help you as the service. So here's the form to submit. And thanks, everyone. Frank,
Thanks so
do you
much,
have
guys.
any?
No, I mean, you said everything perfectly. Just, I always say, see you online, see you on LinkedIn, guys. Frank Saunders, the guy with the bacon emoji, bringing home the bacon, guys. And yeah, see you online. Thanks for everything, Ilya. I think it was a fantastic outing. Hopefully everybody enjoyed tonight.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys, and bye-bye.
Bye.